Hi, welcome to the 4398 Capstone final demos. I'm really excited to have you all here, and we're just ready to get started. But first I want to give a little introduction of the course. So what is Capstone? The CIS Capstone is designed to allow students to utilize the culmination of all of their previous coursework and outside experience to build software as a team. This presents a lot of interesting challenges because working in a team-based environment is not always easy. Students heavily collaborate on their projects using Jira project management software for planning and estimating their project's workflow. And students integrate all of their code together through GitHub. Many students this semester also chose to take on projects involving hardware with more challenges, whether it be soldering, 3D printing, and working with embedded systems, such as the Raspberry Pi microcomputer. Students spend a lot of additional time outside of the class working on these projects, some building their projects in my office. The enthusiasm this semester has been really high. But that's not all that we ask of our students. So we also ask students to document their projects from proposal to requirement specification, architecture design, and API specification. We use a website builder known as Docusaurus to maintain these artifacts. We have 5 projects today. We have 2 for this stream this morning. That is Smart Weights and IntelliGest Smart Home. Later today, at around 12:30 to 1:50, you can join us on the next live stream or in Circ 306 for Wildlife Odyssey, Philly GPT, and BlastPad. So first up, we have Smart Weights, so I'll let you take it away. Okay, boxed in.
Okay, start. Good. All right, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Smart Weights demonstration. My name is Jonathan, and I'm joined by
Daniel, Adam, Dylan.
In this demonstration, we'll show you how to use our applications and show you what features it offers. Smart Weights is a project that presents a comprehensive approach to fitness and virtual pets. The project also aims to improve mental and physical health by allowing users to work out and be rewarded for their efforts. Using a combination of sensors, you can track your form, and Smart Weights will indicate areas of improvement. Your virtual pet will also be providing feedback for your workouts and will increase in level and customization as you go through your fitness journey. With that being said, let's jump right in with the skit to show you how new and experienced users can use Smart Weights.
Alright, hey guys, I've been looking to working out. I recently downloaded this app called SmartWeight that you guys recommended to me before.
Hey, that's great, Park. Weightlifting is a great way to improve your strength and fitness journey.
Yeah, and Smart Weights is like having a personal trainer in your pocket. It's like perfectly tailored for beginners like you, and it'll help with your bicep curls, ensuring you're lifting safely and effectively.
Yeah, and the best part is not just for beginners. Even seasoned lifters can benefit from the advanced features of this app, from tracking their progress and getting feedback on their workout forms.
Yeah, so what do you say, Par? You ready to give Smart Weights a try?
Absolutely, let's do it. Thanks guys, I'm excited to see where this takes me.
Here, you can borrow my pair of SmartWeight sensors. SmartWeight uses them to track your bicep curls via Bluetooth and transmits the data to your phone and calculates your form based on your data. All right, let me attach them on to show you. Attach the dumbbell sensor onto the dumbbell like this. Yep. And let me help you with the elbow one. You want to use the elbow one on your elbow for more precise data. Yep.
Perfect. Now let's open up the app. I'm going to go ahead and open up my app as well and walk through it alongside of you.
Oh wow, this is a pretty logged-in screen.
Yep, it uses Apple ID and iCloud verification, to manage your account.
Yep. So you can go ahead and create your account. And then when the pop-ups show, you should agree to having the Bluetooth and notifications on. And as well as the game center.
Oh wow, a tutorial prompt? Perfect for a user like myself.
Yeah, it's a video that walks you through the app, but since we're here with you, we can skip the video and we'll help you out. However, the tutorial can be revisited later.
This is a homepage?
Yeah, that's the landing page, but we can come back to this later and talk about some of its other features. Basically, it's some information for new users, like instructional videos, but for now, I want to show you the virtual pet aspect. It's really cool.
Cool, that's a cool dog artwork. Assuming this is my pet?
Yeah, the dog is the default pet, but there's other pets as well. Everyone starts off at level 1 and with 50% health, very much like any other virtual pet game.
Can I see your pet, Daniel? What level are you?
Yeah, so here's my pet. I'm currently level 7.
Whoa, your pet looks super cool. How you get that change?
Well, if you notice the hamburger menu in the top left, you can go to the shop and buy other customizable items. There are 4 main categories: pets, foods, backgrounds, and outfits. As you can see, I currently have a little over 2,000 pet coins right now. A new user like you would probably have 0 pet coins, but you can use these pet coins to buy these items. Foods can be purchased multiple times, but the other ones only once. I'm gonna go ahead and buy a couple of things right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and buy some new floral glasses. Let's get a bamboo background. Let's buy an apple. And yeah.
Cool, I saw earlier there's a customize option in the hamburger menu. Is that how you equip the newly bought item?
Exactly, the customized option right underneath the shop. As you can see, the new items that I bought, as well as my previous items, are now in my inventory. I'm gonna go ahead and equip my newly bought items, which were the floral glasses and the bamboo background. There's also the unequip button if you ever wanted to uncustomize your pet as well, but I like how my pet looks now.
Hey Daniel, you should probably feed your pet. You did just buy some food.
You're right. My pet is at 30% health, but there's different foods I can feed my pet, which I can choose through this selection and clicking on the foods icon. Some of them heal more than others, but since I just bought that apple, let me go ahead and feed it one.
Wow, I definitely could see how this could be motivating and in addition to workout journey. Speaking of which, can we check out the workout page? I'm assuming that's how you earn your XP and pet point.
Yep, you seem like you understand the app. Let's go ahead and go to the workout tab.
Oh, my dog is here too. That's cool.
Yeah, your dog acts like your personal trainer on this tab. First thing you want to do is turn on the sensor. Let me help you out with that. First, you just want to press the power button on here. Here you go. And turn on the elbow. All right. Yeah, if you look on the top right, you can see that the sensors have successfully paired by the connections on top. They turn green when they're connected. Again, one of the reasons why I love smart weights is because the sensors help me correct my form.
Okay, let's start workout. Oh wow, I saw 4 different prompts: set, rep, weight, and countdown timer. What should I put for them too?
Let's try doing 2 sets with 3 reps and dumbbell weight of 10 and a countdown timer of 5 seconds.
Okay.
And then after you press the start workout button, there'll be a countdown timer, and once you hear the beep, you can start your curls.
I've seen you guys do bicep curl before, so I'm going ahead and try to mimic you guys. So I'm assuming this is my feedback page?
Yeah, good try for the first time, but you see the bottom that your curls are only 50% good and your elbows were 46% good. Let's try this again, but let's go a little slower this time.
Ready, let's try this again.
Wow, a lot better this time. Okay, this time, let's try the voice recognition feature. It's great for hands-free usage of the app. To start the workout, you would say start. To finish the set, you would say pause. To start the next set, you would say next. And to finish the workout, you can say finish. You can also manually click the buttons as well if you want to finish the workout with the button rather than with your voice.
Okay, let's try this. Start. Pause.
Looking good already.
Next. Pause. All right, let me just try to press a button for my final set. Finish.
Great workout session, Par. Make sure when you're working out, you always try your best. Smart weight also keeps you safe. Whenever you're doing a dangerous movement that can potentially harm you, it will alert you with a sound to make sure you're safe. Also, keep in mind that if you have bad form, it makes your pet lose health. So, try your best.
Oh wow, it seems like I lost 5 health from the first set that I do.
Yeah, you did lose 5% health, huh? Well, I'm not sure if you noticed earlier, but you got an achievement. You can check them out in the Achievements tab. I'm gonna go ahead and show you some of mine, since I have more and I kind of want to brag to you. So here's what the Achievements page looks like. It's separated into in progress and completed achievements. Additionally, you can check them out in the Game Center interface. Just click on the Game Center icon, and it is integrated into Game Center that will reward you points upon completion. And additionally, you can also check these out in your profile.
Yeah, you're right. My profile highlights my pet and my completed achievement.
Exactly. And if you complete more achievements, you can go ahead and scroll through and see specific ones. If you want to go ahead and brag about your friends to your Smart Weights journey, you can get a screenshot of your profile just by clicking on this camera icon. I'm going to go ahead and send this to my friend Jonathan. Hopefully he doesn't complain that I'm bragging. But there are also some other features that you can check out in the setting cogs icon. You can set a fitness plan, which is great as you can create one and revisit it anytime to help keep yourself accountable and track your progress. I'm gonna go ahead and create a fitness plan for myself this week. Let's do 2 weeks. I'll set it for the 30th. The 20 pounds, let's do some sets. And let's add some notes in here. That look good?
Yep.
Great.
Nice.
And additionally, there's also an option to change your notifications based on your selected frequency on how often you want to work out with Smart Weights.
I think daily is perfect for me.
Yeah, same.
Let's go back to the home page and I'll show you some other features. There's a progress page that will show you your workout data based on the date you select.
Yeah, so here's what it will look like, for instance, if you were to work out across multiple days. So here it is today, the 28th, and I also did a little bit of a working out on the 27th as well.
There's also additional help pages and instructional videos that you can always revisit later if you have any issues or questions about Smart Weights.
Wow, thanks you too for helping me learn more about Smart Weight. With Smart Weight, my fitness journey will be the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
That's our project.
Does any
Any
questions?
question? You take a question. Go ahead.
So what was it like working with a lot of software components, but also kind of mixing that with the hardware components? Because I know with these two projects, one was originally only software-based, the pet app, and then the other one was a hardware-based project that kind of got meshed together. How was that kind of evolution of deciding how you could actually go which project those two in mind?
Yeah, so I can speak for the hardware part. Luckily, there was a lot of sample code that's already existing for the Raspberry Pico, which is what we use for the hardware. So that was easy. It just had to refactor to make sure it works for what we needed. And the easiest, I guess not the easiest part, but the best way for us to communicate between the software and the hardware was just Bluetooth and just sending that data over.
I have a self-interest question. Is there anything you've done in software design, the previous class, that have been useful for a capstone? Do you remember anything from that class?
Project management. In software design, we use GitHub projects to make sure we keep a track of our tickets. But here we use Jira, which is, in my personal opinion, a lot better. But yeah, that's definitely something that's from software design that really, helped us in this project.
I can definitely speak on this as well with documentation. I think software design was a huge step up in documentation compared to other CIS courses. So I think that built a pretty strong foundation for a lot of the documentation required for this project. So.
I'll make sure to not forget to do those parts.
What did you find in the experience of this class that was maybe like the best or most influential for you for this project or going forward? Any thoughts?
Could you rephrase that?
So like, what did you like about the class? Or how did it affect your development of the project? Do you feel like how was that engaged? I don't think I'm speaking English anymore.
No. I enjoyed the group aspect of it, working as a team. This is the first class we really had that allowed us to do this, other than software design. And I really like that aspect. It really taught me a lot how to communicate with people and how to work on a project together.
Like asking for help from other group mates that you might not be able to understand. So that's another aspect of it that I like.
Yeah, just like having, I guess, like sprints and being able to keep everyone accountable is also pretty important. Being able to, having that kind of deadline allows you as a teammate to better communicate with others and hold everyone accountable as well as yourself.
I think the open-ended nature of the prompt was pretty interesting to me because it allowed all of us to really practice our creativity.
I think the project management skills we learned from this class were very useful, especially stuff used in industry like story planning. I thought that was a very interesting tool.
Could you identify what you might determine to be a major challenge, whether technologically or in the process? I think you alluded to using Agile. Were there any challenges that you faced, and if so, how did you overcome it as a team? Or was it all smooth sailing?
Definitely was not.
It was not.
I guess the first couple of weeks we definitely allocated a few more story points than we could handle, and I mean it just came with practice and time and figuring out what our limits were.
Yeah, and on top of that, midway through our project development, we had to basically pivot what our project was. So additionally, we intended to incorporate machine learning, but we realized due to time constraints and kind of the experience of our teammates, we had to pivot, and so we had to really start grinding it out in order to make that turnaround really successful.
Any other responses? There is a YouTube comment.
Sure.
All right. What challenges did iOS and Swift programming introduce that we don't normally encounter in our classes?
I
That's
think
from another student.
one of the biggest issues was the PBX project file. It's pretty much this file that I don't know how to explain, but it links together all the files. And when we were merging from different branches and everything like that, we just had merge conflicts every time, which was not fun.
Just in general, Swift has to be programmed on Xcode, which is Apple's IDE, and it's not the best in my personal opinion. It's not fun.
This was kind of self-inflicted, but we decided to also use, since we're doing an iOS native application, we decided to use iOS functions. So one of them specifically was the database. We could have used any type of database, Firebase or whatever, but we decided to use Apple's iCloud, and that was pretty horrible because it's not any type of regular relational SQL or relational database. So it's really tough to integrate into our app.
Can you speak a little bit more to those challenges with the iCloud database? Anything specific that happened that?
Yeah, so a lot of times, for me, I just never knew if it was on my end or if it was on Apple end. So that was always a pain point. It's like I could never understand who's at fault for the problem. Another thing would be, yeah, I guess just kind of a lot of the. So another thing was that recently, for the most recent iOS, they deprecated a whole bunch of old functions. So it was just trying to redo like the documentation, which Apple doesn't really have the greatest, in my opinion. And there weren't like really that many helpful tutorial videos. So that was also kind of like a struggle point with that.
I have one last question. This was a hardware and software project. Would you recommend future students take on that challenge, or maybe steer clear from a hardware-based project? Especially with the microcontrollers that you use, like the Raspberry Pi Pico, and like some of the languages that you use. Would you recommend them? Would you say that it's a fulfilling challenge, or more of something that it's like, oh, we would have rather just steered towards more software?
I mean, I think it's a challenge worth taking. I think if your team is strong enough and there's a lot of coordination, it's worth trying. I mean, for example, for us, we have some people working on hardware, some people working on software. You know, if we need to make a screen for workout feedback, we can't really test our data and see if everything's accurate until that all the hardware is set up and configured that way. So I think there's a lot of coordination with the team. I think it's worth trying.
You have another sprint of like 3 weeks sprint. What can you change or add into the sprint?
That's a good question.
I don't know, maybe a minor change, or I don't know, maybe it could be anything. Is there anything you want to do or that you can?
Yeah. So right now we only have a bicep curl. In 3 weeks we could probably implement a different type of workout so that you can do multiple types of workouts in one session instead of just bicep curls.
You have that question. My peripheral vision is just bad. Battery life of the devices. How is that with like the Picos and the heart, like Bluetooth sensing? How have you tested that, or how is that?
So they're only on when we actually do the workout. So for the most part, they're fine. I did leave them on overnight. One night, by accident, they were dead, and I charged them, and they charged pretty quickly. And overall, like, you don't have to worry about battery life if you're only doing the workout.
Yes, with regards to the sensors, you're using their accelerometer. What sensors are being used? And I'm just curious, did you need to roll your own, or would an off-the-shelf mass-produced?
Yeah, so
work as well?
I'm using the MPU 6050, which measures both angular acceleration and normal acceleration on the X, Y, and Z. There was already a pre-existing library, or I guess you say file, that had all the code already written to get these data. And I just had to go in and modify some things to get like better ranges on how much I can, how many degrees I can get, or how much data to send, stuff like that. But yeah. Did I answer your question, or?
I was curious, at the fork in the road where you decided to use and roll your own sensors, would it have been easier to get, or would it have been possible, if not easier, to just get mass-produced off-the-shelf accelerometers that you slap on and the same thing? Or did you need to actually do your own because there was something that needed to be tweaked specific to your project?
We just used like mass produced.
Yeah, these are mass produced. Yeah, and we just tweak the code to make it match our stuff.
Could you speak a little bit to the programming, like what language used, or how that went? And actually, one more thing, you could just show the camera like what the devices look like.
So these are just the case. If I should pop one open. Don't mind the ugly wiring, but there's a Raspberry Pico. There's an MP. There's an MPU underneath this, and there is battery right there. Yes. And I use Python programming, specifically using MicroPython to specifically program these and using Bonnie as my IDE to plug in the code into the actual microcontrollers.
Yeah, and like Pico, Raspberry Pi, they had a lot of great like helpful learning tools because I think the hardware is geared towards beginners. So that's where we grabbed like all the code to grab all the sensor data.
When it came to mobile app development, have any of you had experience in mobile app dev? And if you have, was it in Swift? And if none of you have had that experience, what was the experience of working with Swift and mobile app development or coming through our courses? Nothing in the standard curriculum it has mobile app development other than the electives. So what was that like taking on that challenge of a completely different type of application that we're building in this major?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure no one here had any mobile app development experience. Oh,
I took the
Never mind.
Android development class. Honestly, Android is a lot easier programming compared to Swift. Swift was a very big learning curve, especially just using Xcode, just figuring out how to commit and things like that. It was pretty challenging compared to Android Studio. But overall, I think having like previous experience programming a mobile app definitely helped.
For me, so like I have like very minimal React Native experience, so it was JavaScript-esque. And so I would say if you understand like the building blocks of how to just build like visual elements, you could get it through Swift. It's pretty one-to-one. So yeah, in terms of the UI at least.
Also for the UI for Swift, in Xcode you can like preview all the element of the UI, what it's going to be look like. That's so super helpful. As like my first time doing Swift too, and UI like example like do Z stack or H stack on putting item on top of each other. With that preview, it's super helpful. Like knowing where we don't need to build into like a phone or something to test it out.
But one of the best parts, in my opinion, is like if you want a functional calendar, there you have like built-in functions and stuff like that. So you just gotta like drag it into your code and it's there.
In future, do you guys plan to work on this project, or you guys are satisfied with its current state?
I wouldn't say I feel like there's a lot that can be done to this project, but considering that it is hardware related, it's kind of hard for all of us to work on this project. Plus, we have to return this, so we can't really work on the project if we wanted to.
It's like, oh, we need to return that to graduate, but
Yeah.
we can hold your graduation.
You can take it back.
Any other questions?
How much would you say user experience factored into some of your design decisions? Was everything just driven by your technical needs, or were you mindful of how would a non-technical person approach my application, think, or how intuitive it would be for that non-tech person?
Yeah, I would say there was a decent amount. I don't think we implemented like putting user experience as the forefront, but it was definitely there a lot of time. Whenever we were testing, like manually testing any type of function as a group, we would pretty often say, oh, what about this edge case? What about this edge case? And that would help inform like how we implemented new code into our system. So like something like a countdown timer. Before we had it like hard code set to like 5 seconds, right? But we were thinking, well, what if a user might need more than 5 seconds to prepare? Maybe less. We should have some type of input for that. So it was just always that type of user experience. Usually came as a result of us just testing as a group, from what I understand.
Well, great job, guys. I think we'll take IntelliGest Smart Home next, but it's been a great semester.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give it a round.
We good?
You are?
All right. Hello, everybody. We're the team behind IntelliGest Smart Home, and we're excited to bring you an interesting and enticing presentation about our project from this semester, the IntelliGest. The IntelliGest Smart Home is revolutionizing the smart home industry by introducing a smart home service that's powered through intuitive gestures. No longer will you need to activate and control a smart home using your voice. And by controlling the system through gestures, we're able to introduce the fascinating field to individuals who may have the difficulty speaking or may be hard of hearing. We aim to solve a complex issue within the smart home ecosystem. And I'm going to pass it over to Kevin, who's going to speak a little bit about the hardware side of our project, as we are both a hardware and software component project.
Hello, so yeah, as he said, our project is a mix between software and hardware. It is currently running on Raspberry Pi 4. You will see it when you take a look at it over there. It's kind of hard to see how it's set up now, but originally there was meant to be a case. The case we had purchased was a heatsink case that did the opposite of cooling down the project. We have two functions attached to our project, which is two ESP systems, which are a smart lock and a smart light, things that can be toggled on and off through Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Our display is a wireless touchscreen display, and we acquire our video feed through a constant video camera running while the project is on. And I will pass it on to Darsh.
And in terms of software, we have used Home Assistant software, which allows direct integration of your home appliances within its system. And other than that, we have used Python and its library, such as Flask. And for to detect users and gesture, we have used OpenCV and MediaPipe. And for intuitive user interface, we have used React and Next.js.
Yeah, so just get an understanding of what our application is. You can imagine it as a service for a service. So the service being Home Assistant. I'm going to speak a little bit about Home Assistant if you don't know what it is. Kind of helps you have a little bit background information about it so you can understand what our project is doing. So Home Assistant lets you seamlessly integrate various smart home devices within your smart home ecosystem. It's an open source, self-hosted smart home service that, like I said, allows you to control and automate your devices within your home. It provides a central platform to manage and interact with smart home devices, such as locks, lights, thermostats, televisions. And in our example today, we'll specifically be targeting locks and lights. And we've designed the IntelliGest system to seamlessly integrate with any Home Assistant system, making it easier for users to easily incorporate this gesture control into their pre-configured Home Assistant system. So the integration process is pretty straightforward, just with a few configuration changes and a little bit change to possibly the naming conventions of your Home Assistant devices. You're able to plug in and utilize our program within your system. And the convenient thing is that most people in the Home Assistant sphere use a Raspberry Pi as their base for how they run their Home Assistant. And luckily enough, our program is built for the Raspberry Pi, along with the display that you can plug into the Raspberry Pi to have a nice little UI to be able to interact. So what we have for today is a mock version of what someone might have for a Home Assistant setup. For demonstration purposes, like I said, it's all set up on the Raspberry Pi, along with 3 ESP32s, which are running ESP Home, which is a software that lets you basically create smart home devices using the microcontroller. So you can take something that is not smart, like a basic LED bulb, and turn it into a smart light. So in this demo, we're gonna utilize these ESPs and showcase that functionality of the lights and the locks using simple yet intuitive gestures. So as we get set up over there, we're gonna pass it over to Casey. He's gonna go through the demo for us of how to actually utilize the software. So just give us one moment, we'll get everything set up and show off the software. Just gonna hop in the Zoom call real quick and I'll share the screen so you're able to see directly onto the actual display itself. Joining the Zoom meeting. Give me 1 second. I do apologize. Hold on. I do apologize if the stream from my phone is a little choppy. In order to use Home Assistant and all the devices, they all must be connected to the same wireless network. So I'm supporting a hotspot off my phone that the Pi and all the ESPs are connected to, and the Home Assistant is configured to look for that network. Casey, good to go?
Okay, so for the start of our demo, we'll show you the GUI that we have right now for the Home Assistant. So you can see on the left side is a camera that is showing like just live video feed. And if you do a gesture for the camera, it will detect your gesture and tell you what it is lower on the screen in this latest gesture, first gesture, and second gesture areas. So based on the gesture you put into the screen, you can do different commands, such as turning on and off lights, turning or locking and unlocking a lock, and also viewing the weather forecast and also current news articles. So why don't we start off by viewing the weather. So to view the weather, you'll gesture thumbs up. And once it has detected that your current gesture is a thumbs up, it will open up the weather and it'll show you a forecast of the current weather and the weather for the next couple of days. So to speed things up, right here, we can see the weather. You can see a normal forecast, a basic forecast here of the current day, and then you can see a forecast of later days of the weather. So after this, we could show off a different capability this has, which is another sort of media-based capability, which is viewing current news articles. So if we look at the news, we can open up a news pop-up, which will show things such as the Pope visiting Venice, Colorado snow, new Apple product. A lot of the current news articles that are popping up, that are just around today, you can read them on your Home Assistant. So why don't we get into looking at the devices and seeing what you can do with some devices. So why don't we start off by turning on a light. So, to turn on a light, you gesture the L shape, and then after gesturing the L shape, you can either do a 1 or a 2, or just any number to switch on or switch off the number of lights that's on the screen. So, why don't I use the gesture to turn on light number 2 over here? So, after I did this sign for 2, this light turns on. There is another light that is not currently on right now. So why don't we turn that light on? So again, I'm going to gesture, turn the light on. So what gesture we're doing right now is the L gesture, which is sort of like this. So one thing that you could think is L for light. So right now, you just have to gesture for a little bit to make sure that the system can make sure that this is the gesture you want. So why don't we show off a different capability? You can just tap this, turn this light on. So great. now both of our lights are on. Let's say if we're turning on both our lights, we also want to unlock our door. I'll show them the 4 fingers up gesture. So when you show this gesture, what happens is that the lock, which is over there, which is another device that we have, will either lock or unlock based on the toggle that you do. This also has the capability to support, see right there, also has the capability to support different numbers of locks. So you can see right there what popped up was a list of the different locks that are connected. We only have one lock currently, so we just unlocked that one. But if you had multiple locks in your house, such as your front lock, your back lock, maybe if you have a side door, your side lock, you could have multiple locks, just like how you could have multiple lights. So let's say you turn on your lights, you unlock your doors, now you're heading outside, you want to turn off your lights and lock your doors. So we're going to go back to do the light gesture again. So one helpful thing I do for this is I remember L means lights. And there are also other ways that you can remember other gestures and what you need for them. So I'll show this off. What you can do is you can use either of your hands. It doesn't matter which hand you're using, it will understand it no matter what hand is being shown to the device. Looks like the Raspberry Pi camera is having a little frame rate issue, but in later versions of this, with a higher quality and higher definition, or a more recent camera, it would have a lot better resolution and make it easier to detect a gesture. So that's something we could add in the future.
That is one of the kind of unfortunate realities of Raspberry Pi is the capabilities of it. So this is only a 6 gigabyte model, so it only has 6 gigabytes of memory to allocate. And in terms of this, we're processing multiple frames, looking for multiple gestures at a time. It utilizes a lot of the system resources, which is the unfortunate reality of the Raspberry Pi. So utilizing a newer Pi or one with more memory to allocate to the camera would allow for better frame rate connection, or frame rate sending over to the browser, along with running the hand detection in the background. And then I think it's having some issues as well, right?
Yeah, but you could.
We have learned also that there is an issue of lighting. So if the lighting has an effect on whether or not it's actually able to accurately capture the gestures, as well as the angle that it's capturing at, which unfortunately comes with hopefully in the future improving the gesture recognition. As Casey has it now, it has captured the correct gesture.
So yeah, sometimes just a little slow with that. So going back to this screen. Oh, whoops, sorry, I did it before the camera could get there.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
My bad. Little butter fingers. So you can see the capability happen. So it turned the light off. So let's say you want to turn the other one off too. You would just do the same thing like before, like just maybe do this as a quick thing when you're heading out of your house to go to a restaurant or something. You could go turn all the lights off just with using your hands. So let's turn this light off too. There we go. You can see turning on lights, turning off lights, locking and unlocking locks, and showing you news and weather for very useful things for a home assistant to have. But one more thing that we haven't shown yet is that if you have more devices and more objects that are not part of the home assistant, the IntelliGest smart home yet, you can actually click here to go to your home assistant. You click there to go to your home assistant, and then you can activate other stuff. See, you have all your devices here, and if there were more devices that don't have functionality in the IntelliGest smart home, you can just quickly head over there to activate them. So why don't I turn all these lights back on?
All right, and then we're gonna end it off with, she's gonna talk about future functionality that we would implement in the case that we had more time, as well as just some things in that vein.
So as we look towards the future, we have some plans to enhance our system functionalities. First, we are planning to increase the number of devices you can control, and you will be able to manage everything from lights and locks to your entire home ecosystem, all through simple gesture. Second, we are improving how accurate our system recognizes gestures, and this means fewer mistakes and a user-friendly experience, making everything interaction feel efficient. And third, we understand that waiting can be frustrating, so we are going to enhance our system to respond more quickly. And fourth, we're expanding basic gesture by adding motion gesture, allowing for wider interaction and enhance the overall experience. And fifth, we are integrating more home assistant features directly into our system, making everything more convenient. And sixth, we will add the speech functionality for times when gestures aren't convenient, so that just simply speak your command to control the system. And seven, we'll introduce custom service such as to-do lists, reminders, and alarms, all of which you can manage using either gesture or voice command. And finally, we're adding more customization options to our system, making it easier for you to adjust settings to suit your lifestyle. That will be all. Thank you.
I have a few questions. So one algorithm for you to detect the hand gesture? If it's right. Also, is it possible for a user to add custom gesture with method like screenshot learning, for example?
So for the algorithm, Google has a pre-trained model in the media pipe module that can basically take a hand and get a bunch of different landmarks from the hand. And we're using that model as our model currently. I think that what you said with custom gestures is actually a really interesting feature that could be implemented in, in some, like similar idea that you had, where they would just record a gesture and it would probably just take the landmarks and use probably some model to also just take the landmarks and put them in there as another gesture. So yeah, that is a capability we could add in the future, and that's also a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it was a feature and a capability that we wanted to implement, but due to time and features that we had to implement before that, we unfortunately did not have time in order to implement something like that.
Can you talk more about the use case, or maybe if from software design or UI, about persona, about which kind of user are targeted that actually are able to do gesture with their hands, but they're maybe not able to physically touch the screen, and who is targeted for?
So the general demographic that the project was proposed for would be individuals who are either deaf, hard of hearing, or for some other reason would not be able to use a standard smart home system that may speak to them or would require them to use voice to activate it. In terms of the inability to, or the ability to gesture but not touch the actual display, that I'm not 100% sure about what the demographic would be for that. But the targeted demographic at the beginning of this project was definitely individuals who were deaf that utilized gestures already, in, for example, American Sign Language, something that was kind of intuitive already. We would have liked to incorporate American Sign Language into the actual application itself, but again, unfortunately, due to time constraints and issues we were having with certain models for sign language, we ended up not having to implement that. But that is something we really would want to implement because we feel like that is a field that people who may not be able to speak or cannot speak clear enough for a something like Amazon Alexa or Google Smart Home to be able to pick up and understand their voice. So that is definitely something that we wish, at least for the future, we could maybe possibly implement.
We'll replace the voice interface that was encoded
Yeah.
visual interface.
Yeah.
So you preempted one of my questions, which had to do with ASL. Because I got a gesture, and when I heard ASL, I thought you meant I could multiple signals or symbols that it interprets.
Yeah.
Really something. To the question, building on the question, I gather what appears to be the barrier to entry is this idea that I have to sit in front of this interface, which is like I'm already there. It feels like it would be more practical, and I guess this would be the future work, where I just have cameras in my house, and wherever I am, I hold a hand up and I gesture, and it is able to read that. So you need clearly more fidelity.
Right.
It would be weird to just do this,
right.
and wait and wait and wait. And then, of course, because you have a camera, I could turn lights off, but I couldn't turn lights on because it won't see my hand.
Right.
So I would like, but the question would be, maybe you looked at this, maybe you didn't. Other types of interfaces, such as FLIR, thermal read. So it picks me up in the dark. It can still pick up the general outlines of human form.
Right.
And could see my hands, see my fingers. Is that something you would have looked into, or that you came across in your reading?
Actually, do you want to say some case? Yeah.
Yeah, so I did look at that, where the thermal reading, that seemed like a really cool idea, but the main problem with that was that it was very over budget to get a camera that could do that. Another thing that we had was in OpenCV, there are different libraries so that if an image is in the dark, that makes it easier to trace, where it will just kind of draw a lot of emphasis on the lines in the image. Those are also mainly used for different models. But I was implementing that in models earlier so that it would work better in the dark when there are just lines and have it work on that.
And lots of cameras have night vision, because maybe that one doesn't. Right? So it's not an impossible problem. Just a note with what you presented. I think it'd be a problem turning the lights back on after I've turned them off. Right. I have some other questions about that.
Unfortunately, that was the poor discarded camera in my office.
I know you mentioned L for light, because that makes too sense, but what was kind of the thought process towards other gestures for other commands, and were some of them easier to do, were some of them more intuitive for others? What was that process like?
Do you want to go or I can go?
Sure. I think, we just being intuitive was our big thing. We wanted to make it so that people would be able to kind of easily see the gestures and not have it be something too complicated, like some complicated gesture like this, just having this be the lights, this be weather, and this be lights. It would just be more intuitive and also easier to detect.
Did you put any thought into the systems of menus that people would have to go through in order to get to their goal?
like think that they're the action that they're trying to perform? Because right now you got to do 2 gestures to turn on a light, right? Yep. So.
Yeah, so the thing with Home Assistant is it is a service that kind of expects you to have some sort of tech literacy as well as maybe some software understanding there, because it is a service that you're running in your own home. You can configure it to your own needs, but there are a lot of menus for it. The nice thing with our application is in order to do something with a light, it's only 2 gestures. With in Home Assistant, you may have to go through multiple menus to actually get to the interface to do something with that light. But with our system, you stay on that one page. There's no going through other pages. It's just capturing those gestures, and then you have the option of whether or not you want to gesture to turn on that or toggle that action or press on the screen. So it definitely alleviates kind of the multiple pages that Home Assistant has on their base dashboard, and makes it a little bit easier on the user's end, especially since they may be not near the actual display when they're gesturing.
I want to build on that, because if I'm understanding your question, so I asked the previous group about their how mindful they were of user experience, and I feel like for you, that's baked into the pie. You're talking about accessibility, so therefore, it's almost superfluous for me to ask you that question directly. But I think the question, what I was hearing was 2 gestures, multiple gestures to do single actions that in the real world, flipping a switch is, it is the analogy for something simple, flipping a switch. So you've taken a single gesture action, or even in voice, a single statement, and made it 2 gestures, or how many ever. So from a user experience perspective, I'm being mindful of the fact that you have 4 months to do this, so it's not like I'm trying to be, I don't want to be unreasonable. But from a user, at what point do I, as a user, think it's easy for me to just walk over to the switch? Why can't I do 1 gesture to get the light on? And even if I have to pre-train it and specify, this is for light 1, but anytime you see me do this, don't ask me any other questions. I want to turn on the first light. I don't want to have to say lights, then the first light. So I can sidestep that category selection by just giving this single a unique gesture. Is that something that you would have been able to build in, or couldn't have done, could do with extra time?
Definitely, yeah. The answer to that is yes. With more time, it could have been done because we use MediaPipe, but it's like hand gesture recognition models and data sets. There's a lot of them, and some of them are very, very big, and they have a lot of examples of some of them are as big as like a terabyte of just images of people doing different signals with their hands. So it definitely would be feasible to do something like that. And to accessibility, again, we had a price limit on the project and such. So this is more of a proof of concept rather than something that you could mass produce this and already put it in people's homes. But it's just a proof that you could do something like that, and with a stronger data set or better camera, your gestures could be as snappy as flipping off or turning on a light yourself.
Right, and we originally had 1 gesture. It was 1 gesture for the lights, but then we ran into the issue of, okay, what if the user has multiple lights? They could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lights mapped in their Home Assistant system. And with the libraries that we were using, and that at the point where we were at the point where we couldn't take that step back and say, okay, how do we make it so that they could just control light 1 with a single gesture? Unfortunately, due to this, what we were using at the time, making that step back would have required much more time than we needed to be able to do that. But that kind of goes on to it leans onto the thing we mentioned earlier about how we would like for them to be able to create their own gestures and create an action that's mapped to that gesture. And that would kind of alleviate that sort of thing where instead of requiring 2 gestures, you can train it to learn to only require 1. So that definitely is something that was an idea, but then as we kind of got further, other issues presented themselves. And then when it came to user experience, I do wish we had time to give it to people and have them try it out and get that feedback. Because for example, the user experience and design class here, we get that experience of being able to create something, say, can you try this? And then we get that feedback, we learn things, okay, yeah, maybe we missed that when we designed the UI or when we designed the workflow, but unfortunately due to time, we weren't able to kind of get that, and then that's kind of an oversight of turning a one action thing into something that requires two actions.
Have you guys ever used the Raspberry Pi, or am I wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, have you guys ever done stuff with that before now?
I've tinkered with the Raspberry Pi. I've never created full-on applications for it, but I have used it before, myself, for using some pretty simple things. I've never programmed anything to run on the Raspberry Pi or anything like that, or have one that's running constantly in my house. But I did have a little bit of experience when it came to it.
What's its deal with basically just I can think of it like a VM almost. It's just a VM in real life, or what?
Yeah, you can just think of it as a microcomputer. It's not as micro as a microprocessor, but it is a computer. It is a motherboard that has a power supply, or sorry, not a power supply, a CPU. It's able to do everything a computer does, just in that micro form. And it allows us to kind of make things like this, where you're able to attach a display to it, attach a camera to it, and keep it into a small function, a small function computer, rather than something like a large tower that you might have in an office.
Do you manage like the input-output type stuff?
Yeah, so there's GPIO pins that control various things. So, for example, the display is connected through GPIO pins as well as a ribbon cable. That's utilized to send over to display, be able to actually utilize the display as well as the touch capabilities. The same thing with the ESPs. Those also use GPIO pins. And that's actually how Home Assistant is able to control the devices. Basically, what you're able to do is you're able to say, all right, GPIO pin 5 will be used to control a light. GPIO 6 will be controlled using some sort of lock functionality. So it works through the idea of these tiny pins that you connect with jumper cables.
Let's say you start over without realizing the problem about the gesture, right? Is there anything you would like to change from the beginning? Like change how you guys how you guys learn the gesture? Like instead of using from Google, how you guys do it yourself? Or, instead of learning through static image, you can learn through live image, for example? What would you change?
Yeah, I would definitely change the approach we took early on in terms of, like you said, the gestures we were using. I would definitely like to push early on to try and use something to capture live gestures, something similar to sign language that has motion in the gestures you're doing. Something also that I would have liked that's kind of a foresight, maybe not a full understanding of the capabilities of the hardware, is the Pi may not necessarily be the best suit for something like this, or maybe there's something that we can incorporate to increase the processing power of it, or maybe it's better suited for something that's a little more powerful than the Raspberry Pi.
To add on a little, like we had like the issue where we needed a model that was like not very highly weighted and was sort of like lightweight, but we also needed a model that worked very well, and it was hard to get that working on the Raspberry Pi at the same time, because it's just hard to have a lightweight model that also works really well. And so we had a sort of a big slowdown, was that we were trying to make it work with a model we were training on sort of very condensed data, and that resulted in a model that was way too lightweight, and we sort of just misestimated that and had errors with it.
And we would have liked to put the actual model that was running maybe on a server, but then the issue arose of, all right, there's a security risk, you're sending camera data to a server. It kind of came to a realization of that might not be in the user's best interest if they may be unsure of what's happening with my camera data that someone is taking and sending to a server to then get gestures from it. So we shot for processing it all on the Pi, so that way it kind of fits along the side of Home Assistant, where it's a service that you're running locally on your environment. You have control over everything that's happening with it, and you don't have to worry about your camera data being sent to a server that may not be as secure as you would hope.
Could you talk about the sort of the behind the scenes of because a lot of people are asking like, oh, how to make it more performant and things, and the original specification of using a external TPU to accelerate some of these things, what the challenges were there of integrating that. early on.
Right. So after my proposal, you suggested using the TPU Coral, which is, I believe, Google's. Their co-processor that's USB. You can plug it in and do co-processing. Early on, I wanted to get that working. I did a lot of troubleshooting with it. A lot of nights where I was spend up just going through GitHub issues on Google's Coral repo. And there was issues back all the way until 2018 of stuff that was still present today. And based on the responses on those threads and my troubleshooting, it seems like Google kind of sort of forgot about this product, and they're no longer really supporting it. You can go back to the support threads and you'll see people complaining that they've tried for years, and there's other things that people have created, but they're not as well, or they're still buggy. But it's kind of really fallen onto the community's hand now with that device, which is really unfortunate, because with that we probably could have hopefully increased the processing of it and offloading some of that image recognition onto the TPU. But unfortunately, because of all those issues that we had with it, including the libraries that were basically deprecated at this point, that just didn't work. And there was like no solutions online about it, and any solutions basically said, try this other library that someone who has been so fed up made themselves, but that also didn't really work necessarily. So it was definitely a really big hurdle early on, because that kind of put us in a roadblock where we were trying to get that working, and I was putting a lot of effort into that. Just in the end, it didn't come to fruition, and we kind of had to deal with the fact that, dang, that sucks. We had this really cool thing that we wanted to use, but we just weren't able to use it.
Do you guys think this is the hardest project you've ever worked on? Like outside was?
I think, yeah.
In terms of what we've done in our degree, I feel like our degree is a lot of doing these kind of labs with one task. And it's do this task, and then we know when we're done because we get the output in the terminal. This kind of takes a step forward where we have multiple tasks and multiple different aspects, multiple languages, where we didn't get that experience other than in software design. And I think software design was a good stepping point for this class. But yeah, no, definitely the hardest thing in this major that I've done, at least. And I think we can all agree.
So you had a lot of challenges, right? You had you were dealing with the Raspberry Pi, you were dealing with Home Assistant as a service, and then you were also dealing with machine learning, and actually even just putting together the hardware. What would you how would you arrange that as what was the hardest to the least hard? And then a follow-up question would be, would you recommend anyone take that challenge of using maybe the hardware as well? I know I asked smart weights as well, but do you feel like it's worth the effort?
I'm sorry if anyone else wants to say something, I'm more than willing. I think definitely the hardest part was definitely the machine learning. We wanted to make sure that we could try and get it into a way that was intuitive as possible, and that was kind of the utmost priority. And machine learning's hard. Understanding gestures definitely can be difficult. There's a lot of factors that come into play, especially with the camera data that we're sending over. I would definitely put that at the top. The next would definitely be communicating within Home Assistant. So Home Assistant, like I said, is open source. It's a service that you completely are running yourself, and you have complete configuration control. Actually getting that set up to run in our system and configure it in the way that we want to be able to utilize it was definitely a hurdle. I never utilized Home Assistant before, so getting that set up, getting it to be able to spin up every single time we run up the Pi and connect all our devices working, and then as well as creating the mock demo of creating these different smart devices was also a hurdle. I definitely put that next, and then I forget what the last one was.
Probably Raspberry Pi.
Right, the hardware aspect. While it proved some difficulties, and we had that time where we were in your office for 3 hours trying one after another Raspberry Pi cameras, trying to figure out why it would not work. It definitely, there were some hurdles, but it was definitely not the hardest part of the project. And I think, in our major, we don't do anything with hardware up until this point, and I think it's a good thing that everyone tries it, gives it a shot. It's difficult. But when you get it working, it feels really good to be able to get that working and say, okay, that's working. Now I can write that software part, and combining those two. And I think SmartWeight's can agree, having both hardware and software kind of, it gives you a feeling that you haven't experienced yet in the major, if you haven't reached this course yet.
Snar is asking, what were some people's favorite piece of code they wrote for IntelliGest Smart Home?
That's
Any fan favorites?
I'll say the actual code that runs the toggling of devices. Once I finally got that working, that was really fun to be able to see and utilize. It was a bit difficult to get the service calls correct, and I had a bunch of issues with the hotspot and getting everything connected. But once I got that running and being able to actually have the code that actually controls the light, that was very fun. Thank you for the question, Star.
He also said go Casey. So.
Yes, I think my favorite one was the hand class, because we had a big problem where we just had a bunch of functions that were really intertwined with each other, and it was just really messy. And we changed it by turning the functions into classes and just using one big hand class and then a finger class and then a class to process the video. And it was sort of software design coming in because of decoupling and also sort of design patterns too of actually not any specific ones from software design used, but it was
but the enthusiasm is there.
Yeah.
My favorite would be the UI part using the React.js. That was pretty good. And after these guys were having a lot of trouble with the machine learning, the UI was easy to set up, so that was pretty fun.
Actually, could you speak specifically to the challenges of the user interface? Because I know that changed not even midway through, it just changed. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so one trouble we were having, we had to use Flask as a server and we have to make work Flask and the React, so that was a big hurdle as well. Yeah.
What prompted the changes?
Right, so originally we were going to utilize just the Home Assistant dashboard. Home Assistant has a nice dashboard they're able to utilize like I spoke about. Then we thought we might be relying too much off of Home Assistant. We need to kind of create our own UI that kind of works for the system that we're using. The Home Assistant dashboard, although it has customization, it might not be suited best for our application. So then we pivoted towards, all right, we're going to build a native GUI for the Raspberry Pi. Then the issue came, what library are we going to use? When the libraries came in, we were like, building this out, it's going to be probably pretty difficult. We want something that's going to be easy to be able to utilize components, be able to easily render those components and de-render those components, and especially the idea of components, being able to write our own things and display those. And after discussing with you, you were like, why not just switch to a web app? And I was like, that's probably going to be the best bet in the end. So we switched over to React in order to be able to quickly build that out using stuff like Material UI to be able to just pull components onto the page and just not have to worry about the actual building of those components that we may had to have done in the GUI frameworks.
How much did this version change from the initial pitch? Because my Capstone project is a lot different than the one that I had.
It's changed a decent bit. The general format has remained the same, where on the left side you have the camera feed, so you're able to see the gesture that you're doing, and on the right side you have your options. But honestly, maybe it hasn't changed too much.
I would say it hasn't.
It probably hasn't. I mean, we didn't have the GUI built out too much. It was sort of in this state of where we were coming up with the idea of it. But honestly, yeah, it probably hasn't switched too much. It was always kind of remained.
And then it was just implementation.
Yeah.
I think regarding this entire section, everyone kind of reached their goal. It was just a matter of prioritization of things. So like SmartWeights originally pitched machine learning, but also realized that they could achieve maybe the same thing just algorithmically. And then this team did a lot of work to get the machine learning working from beginning to end. It was just a matter of maybe just user interface libraries that changed and how we were going to like connect everything together. But really the requirements were met. Yeah. No? I thought I had another question, it just popped right out of my head. I guess in terms of like support in the course for hardware projects or just these concepts, do you feel like these projects really require more support than less, or how should we maybe like gear some of these things in the future? Because like you all propose these projects, what do you feel like was where you needed maybe the more support?
I definitely feel like the hardware aspect needed the support we had from you, especially. A lot of the stuff, we were kind of stepping into new territory, and you were able to provide a lot of good insight into it, as well as, for the demo, preparing some of those mock devices, you were soldering the lights for us and stuff like that. I don't know if I understood your question correct.
No, it's I guess that sort of the point is like what were some of like the additional like things that you needed, or that you feel like maybe could it have been covered more or less, or like I guess that's kind of a bad question.
I mean, it's all right. I feel like maybe discussions about hardware projects, I think kind of up until Capstone, that we don't really discuss hardware projects too much. It's a lot of software based, and that's understandable. I mean, we're computer science, we're programming, but I definitely think at least some sort of mention of hardware projects about how they work, maybe possibly something with like the Pi. The Pi is very common for hardware projects, understanding maybe how the GPIO pins work, as well as like the different aspects of the board. But yeah, and then I also want to mention support. I think you allowing us to have that Pi in your office provided a lot of support, because our system was pretty bulky, and in order to work on it together, kind of had to be in like a central place to be able to work on together. So having it in your office and the support to be able to do that was very beneficial. So I thank you for that.
And I think a little more budget support would also be helpful, because that way we could have latest Raspberry Pis and better camera.
Yeah, I feel that if someone's doing a hardware/software project, I guess the professor or instructor, I feel like kind of must have some level of support for the students who are doing it, because if you're doing a hardware project and you get stuck on something, like say like we got stuck on the TPU Coral for a while, and we're really hedging our bets on that helping our project, and it doesn't work out, then the project is stuck. But say if someone's doing software, if nothing is getting done for the software project, that's just because they're not doing any work, not because they're getting like hard blocked by something that's kind of out of their control.
So, this is not for you, but like for everyone. So do you guys like interested in learning about like hardware earlier than Capstone? Let's say in software design we don't do much. I don't think we don't do hardware. But is there any skills you guys want to learn earlier than like get to Capstone and just start actually learning by yourself? I know we don't learn React, right? In web dev, we learn like 2 weeks of React. So is there anything you think you guys want to learn earlier?
React is a great one. Like more modern frameworks. I know in some of my classes, like my one data class, we're using Django for one of the labs, and what I got from that is that Django is really outdated, and that we should use Flask because it was just way easier to use. So I think using more things on like the most like recent tech. I also want to ask a question: are there any like computer science electives that are mainly focused around hardware or not?
I don't believe so. I think there's like maybe one IoT security class, but that
would be in College of Engineering,
in
electrical engineering department.
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah.
That's happening.
can someone speak to that? So like, I know if you join the IEEE club, they occasionally host like Arduino workshops. If you ever want to get your hands on that, it's great. But it's not a class, but something to hold now.
But I think even just discussions, maybe not even a full class, but even, for example, in software design, if I remember correctly, there was something about the project proposals that mentioned hardware. I might be wrong. I might just be making it up in my head, but I feel like there was a mention of something that has to do with hardware if you wanted, but it kind of seemed like it wasn't really an option, and it doesn't seem like anyone ever really chooses to do hardware. So maybe even just a discussion in that class about hardware projects, maybe what it entails, maybe discussion about microcontrollers, stuff like that, to be able to give people maybe the boost that they might want to say, okay, maybe I want to do that in Capstone. Maybe I want to take on a hardware project, because kind of up until this point, we don't really get much discussion about it. We don't really know too much about it. It's kind of stepping into uncharted territory if you haven't done it outside your normal curriculum.
I don't know if I feel like I understood what your question was earlier, but I don't know if they did. Like, is there something about Capstone specifically that you wish that you know at the beginning of the Capstone course going, like, because that's kind of what you're asking.
I think
like,
that's,
like,
yeah, I think
is
that's
there like
better.
an insight that you're like, wow, I've gone through this thing, and I wish I knew that, like, not that this would have been a problem, but it's like that you would have looked at things differently earlier. Like, and then you kind of talked about like the hardware being a challenge, and it's like, well, that's a huge blocker that'll just prevent like progress.
Yeah.
Maybe don't pick something like that, or not say like, or just like, don't pick something like that if you don't have a hardware already accessible and like familiar with it or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely kind of agree with you. Maybe kind of I don't want to say warning, but just kind of a a warning saying, you're going to hit blockers when you use hardware, because that hardware is directly communicating or integrating with the software you're writing. And when you hit blockers with the hardware, you have trouble testing the software on the environment that you want to run it on. If we weren't able to get the Pi set up early and getting it set up in the environment that we wanted, we would have had a lot of issues, because how it runs on Casey's laptop isn't exactly how it runs on the Pi. And being able to test it in that environment early is something that I think kind of needs to be stressed, because I put it on myself to get that configured early so we could test it, but I think kind of a warning sign for people coming into this course if they want to do a hardware, kind of pointing out the difficulties that they might face, and not to push someone away from doing it, but to just make them wary of, you might hit these issues. Maybe here's how you can tackle them.
That's good. Yeah, that's good feedback. Well, we're actually a little over time, so but I don't think there's another class coming in. If you have any final questions, feel free to ask them. If not, it's been a really great semester. I think these projects were super challenging, and you guys tackling even things that aren't a part of our major. So that's really cool, and you should be really proud of yourselves for taking on those challenges. Honestly, yeah. So it's again, it's been a great semester. I'm excited to see you walk across the stage and graduate, get out of here, and go wherever, or come back for our master's program. But wherever you go, you can always stop by and see me, say hi, yeah, it's been really great. And then I'm going to stop rambling. There are donuts, and I don't think anyone has taken any donuts, so take a donut. But really, congratulations, guys.
Congratulations.